Hello and welcome back to the Cubix75 YouTube channel. No West of Loathing this week, but we do have something else a little bit special here. With the second split of the Call of Duty League season comes Pick'ems for the first time this year with a revamped system to it as well. So as we get into the first week here, is going to be my predictions for the first 2 weeks of games. Now, the second week is subject to change based on whatever happens during the first week of games, but I'm telling you right now, I am not changing a single one of the pick'ems in this first week. So when we tune back into this for the last week of pick'ems, I'll update you on what I changed in that second week and where we're going with the predictions from there. So if you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit that bell, and let's get right into things. So here we are with the pick'ems for the first 10 games of the second split. Now, there are a lot of very close games in this sort of split here for the first weekend of the season, but there are also a few that are going to be very easy to tell apart. For example, this first one, Toronto Ultra versus the London Royal Ravens. Now, evidently, I am a very large Toronto Ultra fan, so all of these are going to be very biased. This one is going to be biased, but I don't think that is because I am an Ultra fan. It is because the Toronto Ultra is an incredible team. To me, this should be an easy win for the Toronto Ultra. Maximum one game from the London Royal Ravens, but I am going to go with a 3-0. And as a special thing this year, you can also go double points. So I'm going to go 3-0, and I am going to also be confident enough to boost this match. I think it should be an incredible win for Toronto Ultra, and an incredibly easy one at that. 3-0, tentative, 3-0, 3-1 I could see with Scraps coming into that lineup, but there's just too much firepower on Ultra, especially if Standy is playing the way that he is. The duo between him and Kleenex with the Vaznev as the primary SMG weapon now, and the best gun out of the two between the AR, the TAC Scar, and the Vaznev. The combination there, having Standy and Kleenex on those more powerful SMGs, it should be a very clean Ultra win. Now, to by far, in my opinion, the closest match of the entire weekend, the Minnesota Rocker versus the Boston Breach. Now, it might not look like it in the predictions here by the fans at a 65-35 split. This one is going to be really close. I watched a video this morning by Lando. If you want to hear a actual professional's opinions on this and not just some dude on YouTube, go check out Lando's channel, Landon Lando Sanders on YouTube. And he said it was going to be a lot closer. I had that feeling before going into this. Boston got a top 16 at a major. There are 12 teams in the league. I'll let you work that out. They lost to a challengers team in the first event of the year. Now, the caveat there is that Awakening had some illness and wasn't able to participate in their final game of that event, having Beans come in and step in. Unfortunately for them, it did not go well, but that's because you don't have the same chemistry that you do with Awakening in the lineup. We saw Breach be really good with the M4 meta, and that completely changed when it went away. But I have some hope for this team. There is a lot that you can look at to try and get back there. Obviously, the SMG lineup of Nero and Vivid is an incredible slaying duo. Vivid, I remember a couple of seasons ago, one of the highest shooting percentages in the league, hitting the most bullets percentage-wise of anybody in the entire CDL. And while that might not have been the case last season, still an incredibly good shot on him. So I think Breach does have some sneaky things that they can work on, especially under the leadership of Methods. But the Rocker, they should have a slight advantage in this matchup. The talent that they have is incredible, and they have one thing that the Boston Breach doesn't, and that is the star player in Afro. Whether the team around him is good or not, Afro is going to drop a 1.2 in at least one game in this series. That's going to be my hot take for this series, is that Afro is going to drop at least a 1.2 in one of these games that's not an S&D. And I don't think we could have very many of those either. Now, what is also interesting is the back and forth between these teams. Obviously, 3-0 one way, 3-0 the other way in Vanguard. But I think coming into this game, the Rocker have had some trouble with fundamentals. We saw that a little bit on the Ultra right at the end of Bance and Cammy being on the Ultra. They faltered a little bit in the last time, and we've seen Rocker ever since the Ultra Reverse Sweep have a lot of trouble kind of corralling the talent that they have. Priest has left, done so well on the New York Subliners, winning the last event. Ultra with the top 4, Standy proving that he can come back and be one of the more dominant SMG players. And now that Bance and Cammy have gone there, the coaching seems to be a problem, and that is not something that they've changed. So that would be my main concern, and I think if you were going to pick an upset pick on the day or on the weekend, that would be my second choice to the match that we're about to get into with Surge or Legion. But I'm going to go with Rocker, and I'm going to go with Game 5. Not round 11. I'm not going to go that far, but I think it'll be Game 5 for sure, and I think Rocker's going to barely come out on top. Bance, Cammy having that time to play with Insight, obviously having a good amount of chemistry together, and then obviously Attach on that roster, also incredible with S&D. So I think that's going to be able to take him over the top. Now, this next game, the Surge versus Legion, this is a very interesting game. Surge coming off a second-place finish in the last tournament. Legion with a top 6, which is incredible for that team. Prolute, TJ, Clayster, I can words, and Temp on that squad. And they're looking much better than I had thought coming into the season. And I think this game could be one where they could absolutely upset. Surge been struggling in S&D, and Legion are arguably the best team in the entire league in S&D, which is just the weirdest thing to say ever. But to me, they're the best, top 2 easily S&D team in the entire league. So if it goes to Game 5, it's going to be Legion. But I think Surge, they just have the firepower with Accuracy, Pred, Sib. And then especially if Mac has a good day, like, I don't see a way that Legion is going to be able to take a respawn. They've made it close, and they might have something coming out of the break, but I have to give it to Surge in a Game 4. If it goes Game 5, easily going to be Legion, in my opinion, but I have Surge being able to take it in 4 games. Now to one of the more interesting games on the entire slate here. For day 2, going to kick things off, Los Angeles Guerrillas versus the Florida Mutineers. This going to be a really interesting game. The Guerrillas, a team that has been completely flipped upside down. Arcity staying on that squad, but the entire Challengers roster coming up, minus Diamond Con, and playing in the major. So we'll see what these guys can kind of do, but there is a lot of, like, a lack of experience there with Joe Deceives coming into this roster, Exceed as well, both of them first time in the CDL. Going to be some jitters, but Florida Mutineers have a lot of guys who haven't been in the league very long either. They've got Brack on that team as well. He's been in this roster since the start of the first split. No changes to Florida. The only team that they've really been able to beat with consistency is OpTic, which is just so weird, but throw that out the window. Florida, in my opinion, should have a slight advantage in this series, despite what the polls may say. It actually is incredibly close. I'm actually going to go with the polls on this one and say Guerrillas in 5. Now, this could be a little bit controversial from a perspective of game mode, because I think Florida is the better S&D team out of the two. I would gander to say that Florida is the best. But I think Guerrillas are going to have the Game 5 clutch factor and take it there and be able to get the dub for their first in this second major. Now, London Royal Ravens versus Minnesota Rocker. Afro's old team going up against them, heavily in favor of the Rocker here. And I mean, I think you got to go with them. Even though the record shows that at the end of the last season, a lot of Royal Ravens wins, to me, it's very easily Rocker. It's just hard to stop Afro and Cammy, especially if he's having a good series. They're just so hard to stop, especially up against the Ravens roster, who like they're good. They're obviously pro players. I don't even know if they'd beat Gorillas at this point, which is interesting because I think they're playing later in the year. So I'm going to go Rocker, make this a quick 3-1 victory for the Minnesota Rocker. I think the Ravens are going to be able to take a game on the weekend, but don't think it's going to come against Ultra. Now, one of the hardest picks, Surge versus FaZe. Oh, this could be really close. Now, despite the Legion talk about upsetting Seattle there, I think FaZe should easily win this series because of the way that Surge is played. I don't think they're going to be able to 2-3-5 on FaZe. I think FaZe will be able to steal one of the respawns in there, which means that they'll easily win it in 5 or 3. I'm going to go with 4 right in the middle. Very weird choice, but I think FaZe could go with like a 1-2-4, lose that control to Surge, or a 2-3-4 with the dub there and be able to close it out relatively quickly. But Surge, I think, is good enough to take a map. Now, this, I think, is my most controversial opinion of the weekend. Subliners 3-0 in this series. No doubt in my mind that they are better than the Thieves. I think very easily could just smoke them out of the water in this series. The Thieves are good. Obviously, the reigning champions. Like, how could you, Cube? How could you make the Subliners 3-0 them? Not even give the Thieves a single map. It's just because the Subliners are frying. They are just going off right now. There's no way to stop Hydra, Skies, Priesta, Kismet. Like, that whole squad is so good right now, and the Thieves have looked kind of flat, in my opinion. Although, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. I don't think the Gorillas stand a chance against them. I think they may take a map, but I think the Thieves are easily better than the Gorillas. They're going to win the Battle of LA at the end of the week. But that's the only redeeming factor for me in this one. I think Subliners wipe the floor with the Thieves in this series and see them gone after the control. Now to the second Ultra game of the week. This one should be also a pretty easy game. Ultra's going to end up winning over the Florida Mutineers. No doubt in my mind. The two most lopsided games, I love how are both against the Ultra. That's very nice. But I think it's going to be a pretty easy Ultra win. I don't think Ultra's going to go 6-0 on the weekend, so I'm going to say that Florida's going to get a map in this series, but yeah, no, Ultra should also wipe the floor with the Florida Mutineers, but Ultra's also prone to being like weirdly bad at times, so that's why I'm giving Florida a map. The hardest series to predict: OpTic Texas versus the Boston Breach. Huke, how is he going to perform on this roster? How is Illy going to do on a main AR? If the Breach are able to come out and beat the Rocker, I think they also beat OpTic Texas, which is a very strong statement considering who is on that OpTic Texas roster. But I'm just not convinced that OpTic would be able to do it, because I feel like Rocker and OpTic, especially if Rocker's able to take a little bit of a step forward here, I feel like they're at about the same level right now, especially with their placings in the last tournament as well. And I think Boston may actually have their number. But because I don't have Boston Breach winning that one, I am going to say OpTic Texas, but I'm going to say in 5, because I think with Illy and Scump and Shotzi and Huke on that OpTic team, their S&D is going to be able to counter that of Boston's and just be better in the series. I think they'll be able to win a map 5 if they get there. They've had ice with this core kind of roster with Illy and Scump and Shotzi especially against Toronto Ultra in the past. So that is going to be what I put for that one. Let's take a look at the fan vote here as well. OpTic Texas, obviously going to smoke the fan vote because it's OpTic. I also just realized that I forgot to show the fan vote for Surge versus Legion. 80% is about right for Surge. They did get second in the last bit. So that is going to be our first set of predictions. Now, because we're already a good amount of time into this video, I'm going to make this second week a little bit quicker here. Oh, of course, it's OpTic versus Ultra is a double points game. Of course. Fine. I don't think I have to explain this one. Subliners just won an event, and the Mutineers are the Mutineers. Enough said. 3-0 wiped the floor with the Florida Mutineers. Subliners have not lost a game in my predictions yet, so that's fun. OpTic Texas, Seattle Surge. This one definitely is going to depend on how they play against the Breach, and how Surge plays against FaZe. That's going to be the kind of caveat to this one. I am going to start off with an OpTic Texas Game 5 win as well here, taking 2 in a row. Just because of the Seattle Surge S&D woes that was brought to my attention by Lando. And I don't think that's going to be something they'll be able to turn around. And OpTic has always been at least a mid-tier to, like, mid-good tier. Between that, like, 7th and 4th best S&D team in the league for, like, seasons now. And I think because they're the same core roster, I think they'll have a very similar result, and Surge are just, like, not good at the mode. So I'm going to go OpTic in 5 because I think the respawns will be close, and I think they'll be able to steal at least one of them, if not the control and a hard point in there, and throw away the S&D as they love to do. But I'm going to go 5. Ultra versus Los Angeles Thieves. Now, I know I talked a lot of crap about the LA Thieves. They're a good team. They're like a good team, but right now they're mid-pack, in my opinion. They found an extra gear at the end of Vanguard, figured out that game. I think they could do a lot the same this season, kind of really put it together at the end of the season. We're not at the end of the season yet. I think Ultra very clearly take this one. I'm also going to do the fan poll here. OpTic versus Surge, 51%. Wow, very, very close. I was not expecting that at all, but I guess Sip and Bread have their own fan bases. And for Ultra and Thieves, 55% to Toronto Ultra. I am actually surprised that that's so low right now. That'll be something that I think will change after the weekend. Just because I don't like Thieves, to my opinion, are possibly the most overrated team in the league, besides Vegas Legion, because I got top 6. But they're just not good yet. They're not, well, okay, they're good. They're not great yet. And I'm just waiting for them to become great. Just because I think it'd be funny, let's give the Vegas Legion a win. This slate of games. We're gonna do it. We're gonna give them 5 over the Boston Breach. I'm not convinced that the Breach is going to be good yet. So hopefully Zinni and co prove me wrong. But honestly, with Zinni, no Winnie at this point. Ever since the meta changed, I don't think they've won a single match since the M4 was GA'd. So that I'm still waiting to see them kind of fight back. And that would be their 3rd Game 5 in 2 weeks, which would suck. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen for their sake, because that would just be detrimental. But oh well. London Royal Ravens, LA Thieves. To me, this should be the Thieves pretty handily. And I think... Oh, here, let's go to the fan vote here. Legion's actually winning the fan vote. I love that. I think with this one, like, London... I don't think have the best slate of games either. I think they'll have found something by this point against LA. But I think I'm going to go a little bit more towards that 3-0. Only because I think the Thieves will maybe have taken a step, kind of bounce back from the Ultra game the day before, up against one of the worst teams in the league. No offense, London, but I think that's going to do it. I think I have to go OpTic in 5 here, just because they always beat Toronto in a Game 5. Like, it's so consistent that if we go to Game 5 against OpTic, we lose. I don't know why, but it just always happens. So we have to win in 4. Ultra will, like, that'd be my prediction. If we win the 4th map, that is because we have won the series already. But if we go to Game 5, I don't think we win the series. And I think it'll go to Game 5, because Toronto and OpTic are always super close in battling. And unfortunately, that's going to be my my one pick that I don't like it, because it's against my boys, but you got to do it. To round out the day, though, FaZe 3-1 over Rocker. That's just going to be like a fairly easy prediction for me. Ultra's actually favored in that one, but I'm going to go with the upset. For this one, Rocker under FaZe, excuse me. FaZe just... Is there more to say than just Celium exists? Like, Celium exists? I know Afro exists, but Celium exists. So that I think that's just a cheat code, and they're going to abuse it and win that series. And I'm going to wait until after the first week, but we'll use one more double points, and I think it's probably going to be for FaZe in that FaZe versus Rocker game. But we'll see. Legion versus Ravens. Just cause I think it would be hilarious if Legion won 2 games in the same weekend. I would actually cry laughing. So that's what we're going to do, just because it's funny. They're like heavily favored too. Oh, please let it happen. Please, COD gods, let it happen. Minnesota Rocker, Los Angeles Gorillas. I actually am going to go for the upset on this one. I think the Gorillas are going to take it in 5 and upset the Rocker. I think this is going to be the biggest upset that I have predicted so far. But I think the Gorillas are going to have put something together. It's their only game of the weekend, and Rocker, after a disheartening loss to FaZe the day before, I think are going to be able to recollect for that game. And I think the Gorillas are going to take their only win of this entire slate. Now, this last game is going to be incredibly interesting. Subliners versus Atlanta FaZe. Subliners have looked so good. But as a Toronto fan, having predicted the OpTic upset with 2 more top teams, I'm going to predict the FaZe upset in 5. Because I think in this matchup, the Subliners should be favored. I know that fan prediction did not say so. I think the Subliners should be favored in this one. Actually, you know what? I think the Subliners are going to take it in 5 games. I think they're going to be able to beat FaZe in the S&D. Although FaZe has been fairly strong in S&D. I think the Subliners are going to surprise in S&D. Hot take on Breenberg. I don't know why, but I can just picture it. I think it's going to be a Breenberg Game 5 S&D that Subliners win. I think that was the map that they smoked the Ultra on. I think it was New York that smoked the Ultra on in that 4th place match to win it. Or, no, that was the game 2. But they won that series incredibly handily. And I think they're going to be able to do it again. And I think it's going to be on Breenberg, because that's just my weird prediction. But that is going to be my first 2 weeks of predictions. Hopefully they mostly come true. The only one that I don't want to happen is the OpTic upset one. That would suck if that happened as an Ultra fan. But hey, we want 4-0 for the Ultra over the first 2 weeks, and I hope it happens. I kind of doubt it. But thank you all for joining and tuning in for this video. West of Loathing going to be back next week, and we'll do another CDL Pick'ems 2 weeks from now. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next Saturday for another video. Bye-bye.